Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Football Heritage TV, wherever you are in the world. Something very different today. Normally, I come on at 10 a.m. We'll have a go at Daniel Levy for an hour, or Ange Postecoglou, or we'll talk about which players need to be sold. But this morning, I'm joined by Micky P. Kerr. Micky, comedian, author, football fan, teacher, everything. Micky, how are you, mate? You good?
I'm good, thanks, mate, and really appreciate you having me on, Savva. This is hopefully going to be a really great chat, and I've got a big agenda here, so strap in, everybody.
Good. I mean, Micky, look, for those who won't know who you are, as I said before, look, they might have seen you on. You were on Britain's Got Talent. You got to the final, if I'm not wrong, for comedy. But what we're going to talk about today, I make it sound really life and death. It isn't a laughing matter. It is very much about your book, which is out now, which is Football, the People's Shame: How to Revolutionize a National Sport. How have you gone from comedian to writing this book about greed in football and billionaires and money destroying the game?
It's a pretty good question, but do you know what? It happens incrementally. You know, and we can talk about that in the wider context of what's happening to football fans. You just move slowly, and then you end up having this. I had this idea about basically football mirrors the wider world perfectly, politically, economically, and I figured out a theory of how to reverse engineer the economic philosophy. This sounds really abstract, that is destroying this country. And we can target football. We can kick all the billionaires out, and we can run it better commercially. And we can also run it in the interest of the country and of football fans. What you're about to hear, you know, the whole thing gets turned on its head. So, and I'm trying to bring football fans together, Savva, now with set up a political movement. The book came out 3 months ago, and it's time for football fans to fight back. And this is about changing the goalpost, really moving the goalpost, because they've already been moved so far away from us. And Spurs is a great club to chat to, because you can see what's happening here, and you know that you're being frozen out of your club. You know the way football's working. The idea that football is a business, that a football club is a typical business, has been so normalized. But yet it's wrong. It's just wrong. And I'm going to show you how it's changed. We're going to talk about history. We're going to talk so we can understand where we are today. This is football heritage as well. You know, it's about the past. And then we're going to talk about the future and a new economic philosophy. And hopefully it's going to be really exciting. And I've got a book launch planned in 8 days. And I've come here to appeal to Spurs fans living in London. It's in Hackney. We can talk about that later on, but I'm hoping you'll want to come along and listen to this presentation, and the idea of West Ham fans, Spurs fans, Gooners, Chelsea fans, Millwall fans, all been in the same place, fighting for the same thing, which is our football heritage.
No, look, there's a nice little plug for the channel there. And big up to everyone in the chat. If you do have any questions as we go along, get them in. I won't be able to ask Micky everything, but I will pin them. Obviously, any super chat questions will get asked immediately, just the way the world works. Micky, two interesting things you said there in your monologue was, one, that Spurs are a great club to have this discussion with. Tottenham, we're always good fun to talk about anything. But you spoke there, and the word you used was frozen out. That was the phrase you used, was fans being frozen out. Can you go, what do you mean by, I've got an idea, but what do you mean when you say that? And is that all football fans you're referring to now?
Yeah, pretty much. What's happening at Spurs is happening everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but in a lot of other clubs as well. The fight to get Levy out, or, you know, whoever might be putting Levy in charge, really, is the same fight to get the Glazers out. It's the same fight to get Ashley out at Newcastle United. Obviously, that happened, but it was, you know, football now works for the oil companies and US private equity, which is the same people that the Premier League work for, the same people our politicians work for. That's how football works. And I've been down to your amazing ground with its laser blue lights. I'm a Leeds fan. My mate works in the city, and, you know, sometimes a couple of seasons ago when we were in the Premier League, and I was lucky enough to go, and he gets us, you know, corporate stuff. So we went down in the East Stand, in the Spurs end, and I got chatting to people. One guy's there, really nice guy, there with his son. He couldn't get a season ticket at Spurs because it's limited, isn't it? The amount you can get.
Yeah.
And he's having to pay £4,000 for his season ticket in the East End for him and his son. That's £8,000 a season, and he had to pay 3 seasons up front. So he had to fork out £24,000. He can afford it because he works in the city selling software to banks. Most Spurs fans, that's who can't afford that. When I went into that stadium of yours, it was like I was surrounded by tourists. There were hardly any Spurs fans in there, as far as I could see. The atmosphere was terrible. You won the game 2-1. We were 1-0.
Hey.
Yeah, you did well.
That's a shock. We won a game.
Honestly, you could hear a pin drop. And it was, and all these amazing lasers. It's so bright and so
light show. Did you see the light show with the floodlights?
Do you know what? More and more we've been in the presentation I'm doing just over a week's time. I show what football used to be like. There's a great picture of Grimsby Town in the FA Cup in the 30s, 39, just before pre-war, and the fans are surrounding the pitch, stood on the pitch. There's thousands of people there. As a player, you'd have to actually move them out of the way to do a throw-in. And then I'll show a modern kind of image of football, and all you can see is advertising around the pitch. Fans have been moved further and further away. Now, I'm not saying that we should go stand on the pitch side again, but there's a way to marry, the idea of commercializing football, selling it as a brand, and football fandom's relationship, the spirituality with the beautiful game. There's a way to marry those and take it into the future and actually create a better product, and we'll talk about that. But you have been frozen out. You're not in the stadium. The people talk about the NFL, and people talk about how great Spurs are as a business, which is fantastic. But you've frozen the fans out. There's no doubt about that.
Is it now? It's now fan/customer, isn't it? With a heavily weighted scale towards the customer part rather than the fan part now. And you're right. I mean, listen, I won't go to Spurs. I went for years. I'm 42 now, Mickey. I went to Spurs religiously. Loved it. You can't beat a crappy old burger outside. White Hart Lane was banging. All the stands singing at each other. It felt like football. I went to this new stadium a few times before I said I'm not giving Daniel Levy any more of my money. And it felt soulless. It felt like we were there on a corporate day out. Do you know what? And this might be nothing to do with what you're talking about, but do you know what it felt like to me? It felt like everyone liked coming to our ground because it's so nice, because they've got comfortable seats, because they've got beer that fills up from the bottom and lovely fish and chips. I want an intimidation of a ground. And when I add all these things together, I just think the word for me is soulless. It's not sport anymore, is it?
No, it's not. It's Americanization. It's an event. It's entertainment. Yeah. But like I said, there's a way of providing that, and also that intimidating football and atmosphere that we all know and love that is now, it's disappearing from all Premier League grounds. We've now got like atmosphere kind of groups, haven't we? That try. I mean, that is tragic. It really is. But if you don't mind, Savva, I want to talk about the history of how we got to where we are and how football became subservient to business. Because the Victorians that handed this down, the beautiful game, what we call English football, they saw it the other way around. And interestingly, I talked about Americanization. We've taken the worst aspects of Americanization because the Americans have the same philosophy as the Victorians did with regards to sport. It's about fair competition. They have a controlled wage cap. And, in the NFL, for example, the worst teams get the first pick of the draft. So it's designed to have, balance, basically. Now, if you hand over to business, it's just the team with the most money wins. That's really what's happening over time. And you get monopolization. It's natural monopolies. But what the Victorians did was this, and this is key, and Spurs are a key club in this. They created a bit of regulation in 1892 called Rule 34. Now, this is going under the radar, really. No one really knows about it. It exists under a cloak of invisibility. Rule 34 meant this: you can't take money out of football clubs. Shareholders were not allowed to pay themselves dividends. So it meant that basically clubs were community assets because they set football up as public limited companies because they wanted to de-risk it. So the FA said, okay, because you've got the beginnings of a business model. You've got wage, attendances. It's really popular. You had to build stadiums. So they said, right, set up as public limited companies, right? But you've got Rule 34 as well, which meant you're not a typical business. You belong to the community. Yes, you can operate as a business, but Rule 34 meant you're not a typical business. You've got to be bound to community rules. You can't take money out. If a club was liquidated, all the money went to charity. That's how football was until 1983. That's the key year. The key decade that switches it is the 1970s. Now, because the wider economy affects football. In 1970, oil is cheap, unemployment is low. In 1980, oil is expensive, unemployment is high. Things have changed. A Middle Eastern crisis fueled a big economic crash, really, in this country. The winter of discontent, 1978, there was a 3-day week. We can't afford enough oil to run the economy. You've got Keynesianism, this economic philosophy, the post-war consensus, big state, everybody looking after each other kind of thing, big government. All that gets thrown away by Thatcherism. 1979, she comes in, she deregulates and she privatizes. The key year in football, 1983, it coincides with Thatcher's second term. So, that's when all the deregulation and the privatization accelerates. This affects football. Irving Scholar. So Spurs fans might remember Irving Scholar. He's the chairman before Sugar. Irving Scholar wrote to the FA in 1983 and he said, I want to bypass Rule 34. The FA didn't respond, so he went about setting a commercialisation agenda. The reason for this, as I've said in the book, and it explains it in more detail, is that 1983-84 is the first season you've got broadcasting, a duopoly with the ITV, BBC, the pumping money into the sport. You've got, pitches are starting to improve. It comes from US golf courses, the drainage systems. So you've got an increase in technology, new technology. You've got an economic switch in terms of philosophy over to individualization, corporate kind of greed, if you want, big business. And this affects football. How did Irving Scholar do it? Well, you can't take money out of a football club. So what he did was he set up a holding company tethered to Spurs. Spurs is the parent company. The money doesn't leave the Spurs. It goes from the parent company into the holding company. But guess who owns the holding company? So that's how they got money out. That's how Irving Scholar did it. And, in 1977, they bring in advertising. You see this switch. There was no advertising in English football. 10 years later, there was quite a lot of pushback on this, by the way, in advertising in football. 10 years later, in 1987, every single top flight team had a sponsor across its shirt. So it took 10 years to normalise. So that's an interesting thing. We're going to talk about the ESL, the European Super League. It's inevitable. They're normalising it. It takes about 10 years, I reckon. So in 1989, you've got the Hillsborough disaster, which changes football massively. And Murdoch is watching all this as the 1990 World Cup comes in. He's losing vast amounts of money, Murdoch, with the Sky TV cinema services. He's in billions of debt. He sees our response to the 1990 World Cup. 25 million people watching that semi-final defeat. Still remember it really well.
Yeah.
And like it was yesterday, great World Cup. And he thinks, wow, I can monetize this. So he sets up with the Tories and he's got this idea of satellite TV. Again, technology changing football. But it's a monopoly, and you're not allowed a monopoly in football, in anything. There's an act against it, 1965, Monopolies Act. Murdoch is protected by the Tories because Neil Kinnock is going to win the 1992 election. His hot favourite, Labour, are going to win it. And he's going to threaten to take Murdoch to the Monopolies Commission. Now, Murdoch basically throws all his weight behind the Tories, and they win that 1992 election through his newspapers and stuff like that. And he gets political protection to set up Sky, this monopoly. He's protected. So that's how, very, very, very briefly, that's how the Premier League came into being. The top five then, Spurs were in it, pushed for this. They lobbied with Murdoch. It was Everton, Liverpool, Spurs, Arsenal, and Man United. So there was no Chelsea and there was no Man City because the oil money hadn't come in yet. That's what's put them where they are. Foreign state oil money, really, which is crazy to say. So that's how it gets set up. Now in 1992, 93, you get 61 million going to the Premier League. And it's not spread evenly. It is Spurs, etc., the top 5 that get most of the money. And that's the way it's always been. It's never shared equally. The winners get rewarded for winning, which creates monopolies. You get more money for winning. And now 30 years later, that figure is over 3 billion. That's a 5,000% increase in funds going into the Premier League. And it's created this this monopolisation agenda. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to switch now to talking about monopolisation and how I mentioned before about incrementally. Things just, you don't see, your child's growing, you just, but they do. And this happens. Is like, it's the same thing. It's like, I'm going to talk about Premier League winners here. The key decade for monopolies is the second decade. The Premier League is 30. We're in the 4th decade now. So what I've done here, and no one else is doing this, which is crazy, the amount of stats in football. No one else is looking at the bigger picture. And that's my argument here. And everyone listening, everything's short term. It's the same with the wider economy. It's perpetual short-termism. There's nothing wrong with being short-term in football because that's what we kind of use it for, It's exciting. But what I'm saying is this, let's also have an eye on the long term. Let's figure out what's really going on here. So I've done a mean average test. You over 10 years, a full decade. So the Premier League winners averaged 80 points in decade 1. In decade 2, it goes up to 87 points. And in decade 3, it goes to 91. So we can see 11-point difference. I mean, the key decade it really goes up there is the second, from 80 to 87. I mean, people might remember the Man United, Kevin Keegan rant. I'd love it if we beat them. That season, Man United won it on 75 points, which is crazy. It was a 4-horse race. They won it on 75 points. Second place it was joint second, 68. So, Liverpool have already got 70 points now. There's still 9 games left. So, it was far more competitive. Now, where's all this money gone? It's gone up and up and up. How's it affected the league, So what I've done, and then no one's ever done this, but I've taken 1900 to 1990, 8 decades of football. So what you've got, because of the world wars, is I've done the mean average of how many different teams are making the top 4. Yeah. So you expect to see it go down, I suppose, don't you? If you're getting more and more money going to the same teams, they kind of the pyramid becomes frozen. From 1900 to 1990, an average of 15 different teams make the top 4 every 10 years. So across a 10-year period, 15 different teams make the top 4. It never drops below 14. In the 90s, it drops down to 13. So not a significant decrease. In the noughties, it goes to 7. Right. So and then in the tweenies, 2010 to 2020, it repeats it. So it's 7 again. We've had 20 years now of just 7 different teams. Spurs are always one of them that make the top 4. It's become completely frozen. However, in this decade now, if Forest make it, and I think they will, it's going to be 9. So only 4 years in, we've actually seen an increase. So what you've got there is the middle classes kind of fighting back. But what you've seen recently is the failure of Man United and Spurs. They've spent a lot of money, but it's gone wrong. And that can happen in football. But they will respond. They will respond. And this is my point. In that 3rd decade of Premier League winners, you've got Leicester winning it. That bucks the trend. So this process is not immune to glitches, but it's the way they respond. So in the 7 years after Leicester's victory, the average number of points to win it goes to 95, which is an incredible increase. So what happens is the monopolies, they see there's no kind of way you can win permanently. If you look at that Leicester team, what happened to it? You get asset stripped. If you want to think about what's going to happen to Forest, what happened to Leicester? What happened to Wolves? Yeah. They take the players that do it and they take the manager that does it, and teams like Brighton and stuff like that who have constantly kind of like buck the trend and manage to buy assets, players at a low price and sell them at a high price.
Yeah, yeah.
The people who do that will also get taken. The scouts, everything goes up. And
Can I
Spurs
ask you
aren't
then?
even at the top. You will get, they go up from you. You've taken a Leeds, part of Leeds dynasty, you know, the Grey brothers. There's another one coming, by the way. He's meant to be even better than Harry. But, you know, you've taken him at 18. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But if he's any good, he won't stay at Spurs. Look at Gareth Bale. Look at Gareth Bale. If you prove yourself to be worthy of being competitive in the latter stages of the Champions League, you know, that good, they will take you. They'll take. It goes up again. He goes up. So
can I ask you? Let me ask you then. So I mean, I think this is really interesting stuff, because I think you're absolutely spot on, and I'm not as elegant, you know, as eloquent as you, but the way I see it is, we get this all the time, don't we? You get a Leicester, you get a Nottingham Forest, you get these teams that throughout the years have these anomalies of seasons. Now, Nottingham Forest fans that I work with will be really upset with me going, nah, this isn't an anomaly, we're going to kick on. But what you do tend to see is, no matter how well those teams do, no matter what year and a half they have where players break through and we all put them on a pedestal, that then normally means that the big boys, you know, the vultures circle. And those players do often then move to the bigger club. So even if a Man United come calling, who are not doing well at the moment, players will still look and go, hang on, we're at Leicester, we're at Forest, this is a bigger club. How does that trend stop unless it's what City and Chelsea did, where City and Chelsea weren't that, but came in, chucked huge money. And listen, I don't think anyone's ever said this, but they must have turned around when they first signed Robinho, for example. They must have turned around and gone, Robinho, we're going to buy you, but don't worry, we're going to buy him and him and him. And it starts what we now see is Man City today. How do teams like Forest, like Everton, like Leicester City, how do these teams stop it becoming an anomaly and get themselves up there so that top four race that you said turns into a bigger pool over the next decade rather than the small pool that we're seeing right now?
Well, they can't. The only way you can do that is by regulation. You've got to look at the bigger picture and regulate it properly and make it fairer. And actually what you've got now is the profit and sustainability rules, which is, you know, if you want to make football clubs profitable and sustainable, make them profitable and sustainable. I mean, it just sounds ridiculous to say that. That is literally how you can do it. You have a different economic philosophy. The Victorians controlled everything. They had so much regulation. And today, actually, football is heavily regulated. But it's regulated to keep the big teams winning, because it means that these teams like Forest, who had to break the rules, actually, they broke the rules. They got fined 2 points. You know, they're pulling fines out and numbers out of a bag here. No one knows what's going on. It's very complex regulation. There's a lot of loopholes. But you've got to look at the bigger picture. The Premier League have got to do it. You've got to put regulation in place. Here's a great bit of regulation. I've said it in the book. You can keep the free markets, right? How about this? Every Premier League club has to play a player under the age of 21 who were born in certain hospitals and or have lived in that local area for a long time. As soon as you do that, clubs have got to look in. You can't just buy success.
Just go out,
It's just a good little way of going, all right, fusing a bit of locality back in. But basically,
isn't that what we've kind of done with the homegrown rule? I mean, look, I think it's kind of half-hearted, but you know, now you've got to have you've got to have 8 homegrown players. 4 must be club trained. But is the difficulty with that rule that there's no rule to say, well, they've got to play? It's just they're in the squad. Like Spurs have Whiteman and Austin, right? And with all the will in the world, they've been at this club for it feels like 2 decades. I know they're not that old, but it feels like decades. They never get a game, but they'll make every squad because they help with the club-trained homegrown rule.
Yeah, they've got to be on the pitch. I mean, otherwise...
Right.
I mean, I think Liverpool, I was watching them the other day, a few weeks ago, and they had no English players on the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like, I think that's the first time in a long time it ever happened. So, yeah, you don't need to play them. So, there's a lot of... It's facade, this.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of it is for show. They don't really mean it. There's no way you can get teams coming into the, widening the pool of the top four, because if you fly too close to the sun, you'll get your wings clipped. And this happens psychologically as well. Teams get asset stripped. And we also say to ourselves, if a player does really well, we'll say he deserves a chance at a top club. You say the same about managers. So the European Super League is happening in our minds. We've normalised monopolization. And very quickly, you might have some questions, but I'm going to go and shout. What else I've done is this. I've mean averaged the top four. So what's happened over the decades, key decade is 1981, because that's when you get 3 points for a win. So that's the way of doing it, points per game. So in the first decade, right, you can see where are my stats. Mean average of the top four, it's 71 points in the 80s. In the 90s, it goes down to 68. But it's that second decade, it goes to 78 points in the Premier League. The last decade, it's gone to 82. So now what you've got is the top four, the average of the top four is higher than the Premier League winners used to be. So you can see this concentration of points, just like in the wider economy, the concentration of wealth, it leads to the concentration of points. Yeah, I mean, and I can explain how this is happening. It's typical, the mirroring stock market strategies about how to monopolize. This is how it's done. One, control of scarce resources. Elite clubs monopolize top talent, and transfer fees skyrocket. Asset price inflation. We see that happening in the wider economy. Then it's economies of scale. So the financial power of enables the continuous revenue and growth of the bigger teams, and the smaller clubs can't keep up with the spending power. And this is a key one. 3, mergers and acquisitions. I'll talk about how this is going to work later. But you've got multi-club ownership models now. It's like corporate takeovers. And the talent pipelines of top players are controlled by elite clubs. Brand loyalty, advertising, worldwide brands. A lot of this is advertising. You want to associate products with winners. So you see, kids just see winners and the best teams all over the place with the growth of media. And now, smaller clubs find it difficult to break into that elite status. And this is really key. Vertical integration. The two key ones here for the future are mergers and acquisitions. This is what's going to happen. And then vertical integration, I'll talk about in a second. But what that means is you control everything. The entire, full dominance over football supply chain, basically. Control over youth academies, scouting networks, and commercial deals. And then you've got 6 barriers to entry. You just can't break in. Smaller teams can't break in. Now, what's going to happen? I mean, I know there's a lot of leaps here. And a lot of whoa.
Yeah, no, go for it. It's good.
But yeah, there's so much to say and not a lot of time to explain it. But what you're going to get, this is how the future is going to work. The ESL, and it's interesting because I can make a prediction here. We that with Man City, the points thing going on, the
115,
they're going to get away with it, and I'll tell you why. Because the Premier League are working for the oil companies and for US private equity. They can't afford to piss them off, and neither can UEFA, because A22 are this company that came in and did the ESL in 2021, and 12 clubs across Europe merged. Vertical integration. They're going to merge with the commercial sponsors. They're going to merge with the broadcasters, and it will be Americans. This country is sold to Americans. The Americans control everything. I'll talk about this again. I'll come back to that point. They're going to merge with them. Now, they've realised we can do this without you, UEFA. We can do this without you, Premier League. So what, they did it outside the remit of UEFA. And in the courts in 2023, it was deemed illegal for UEFA to block this. So what you've got now is a jostling for position. It's a power game. The Premier League and UEFA are cozying up to the big clubs. This European Super League has to happen. It's coded into the economics. It's the economic theories of Milton Friedman. That's what they're using. It is inevitable. It has to happen. So now they're going, it happens with us or without us. So you will do it with us. So UEFA, the Premier League, it's a system of brown envelopes. They're going to merge with probably an American company to do a Netflix kind of Amazon style broadcasting model where the ESL will go beam to the whole world. They will control all that money. They will control the everything. Spurs will be taken in, but eventually, because you won't be called Spurs, they'll change the name. The billionaires doing this don't give a flying, about our heritage or our club names. They're not doing it because they're nice. These people want power. They want control. They want influence. And the soft power of football is very, very good. You know, it's very, very good at controlling world opinion and dominating world markets. That's the superstructure. The big clubs merge with the broadcasters, with the regulators, everything, and the commercial partners as well. You know, like big advertisers. All this comes together in a corporate structure. And once you've got this Super League, that all the money and all the money just goes around the top, you will get mergers. Like Liverpool will have to merge with Everton. Everton will have got no choice, because as soon as this ESL comes into being, the Premier League loses its status as the best league in the world and becomes a backwater domestic league. Every league is a backwater league compared to this. We will lose vast amounts in revenue. We will have to merge with the big clubs. They will own everything. They'll own several clubs, and then you'll be able to franchise it. They'll buy in. They'll put £5-10 billion on the table, pay wages for 4 years, set up a couple of stadiums around the world, and that's how, you know, big US private firms or whoever, billionaires, oil money, whoever it might be, can just franchise this. Then that's and the Premier League will lose.
Hang on, would this be? Hang on, Micky. So just when we're saying if this European Super League was set up, for example. So let's just assume that Tottenham, Arsenal, I don't know, Liverpool and City all agree to it, right?
Yeah.
So they go into this European Super League, which then means that the Premier League as we know it is the same Premier League, but with minus those 4 teams.
No.
Or they play in both?
They'll have B team status. So, you know, Barcelona B, Real Madrid B. It already exists. That's how they do it in Spain. That's how it's going to happen. It won't be like, oh, it all changed. It happens incrementally. In fact, this is happening slowly. The ESL announcement in 2021, people are going to turn around and going, fan power, stop that. You are so naive if you think that. A, we don't have any power at all. They do not care what we think. We've seen that. You can hold up as many banners as you want. It ain't going to make a difference. This is done to normalize it. So no one is talking about an ESL before 2020. Now everybody's talking about an ESL. It's a really good first step. That thing was done on a Word document. It was crap. It wasn't. These people are better than that. You normalize it first. What has happened this season in the Champions League? It's a league. It's a league format, and you need a calculator with cosine and sine to work out who's played each other. It's that complex. In these, you know, it's a league. As
Dan says here, don't they need us? You said it couldn't happen. Like you know, don't those leagues need the Premier League? Like for the amount of money that comes into it, would that be usurped by the European Super League? So for example, again, I'll say Spurs because I'm Spurs. If Spurs, Arsenal, City, and Liverpool all say, do you know what? We are joining the European Super League. You don't think there's anything the Premier League can do to say, well, hang on, it's more profitable here, or it's big? You think the money involved in the Super League means automatically they go there?
Yeah, Savva, what's happening here is the governing bodies, including the Premier League, are going to facilitate this shift. They work for these people. They work for the billionaires. That's exactly who they work for. They don't work for us. And what's going to happen, is that this European Super League gets set up, and it happens incrementally. What I'm talking about is the eventual split. But Spurs, you know, B will play Liverpool B, and no one cares. No one.
I don't even like watching Spurs A, let alone a Spurs B. What would Spurs B look like? I've got.
Hey, you know, I don't know.
If it was Spurs B, City B, Liverpool B in the Premier League instead of the main team that's playing in the Super League, would the revenue coming in from sponsors, would they look at that and be like, well, hang on, are we going to sponsor Man City in the Premier League? Because now it's not Haaland, Foden and all these boys playing in Man City B, it's these kids and the lesser players. So would that affect the amount? I might be waffling here. This isn't my expertise. This is you. Would that affect the viewing figures of that Premier League if those teams are lesser? Would it affect the profit coming in? Would it affect the prize money? How would all that work?
Well, yeah, what you've got now is because of the power of players like Messi and the best players in the world, Haaland, because of the commercial power that these players hold, there is that swayed things too, which is why these clubs who own these players, who these players want to play for, because everyone deserves a chance at a top club. There's only a few clubs that can win now. So all the players want to play for these clubs, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can't put the blame on players here. They want to play at the top level. They want to make as much money as they can. And to them, I think it is about the beautiful game. It's about their love for football, their passion and their brilliance. You know, that's what you expect from players. But it gives the clubs more power. So they just turn around and threaten. They're threatening the power structure. We will do this without you. So therefore, all of UEFA, they're just corrupt. They are so are FIFA, and this is actually proven in the courts. They are completely corrupt.
I've seen a number of great documentaries about how corrupt FIFA and UEFA is.
You can't trust these people at all. The Premier League don't do anything. They outsource everything. They wear suits and they do nothing.
Yeah,
they are useless. You look at VAR, for example. The implementation of VAR has been a disaster. You look on the continent; they do it far better. You know, and I think they're copying that model next season, the automated, semi-automated. But my point is this: the Premier League are useless. They don't do anything. We've got to take them on. We've got to threaten them with our own power structure. And if we do that, we don't even need to win. As long as they feel threatened, they'll start giving us concessions. Like, there's no reason at all why tickets couldn't be £15 at every single Premier League game. Of course they could do that. They could do that easily. And but what's happening here is this: the players have got a lot of power, the clubs have got a lot of power, and the governing bodies are now not working out how can we make football brilliant, how can we make football fair and more competitive, how can we bring community relationships back to football. They're just thinking this: how do we protect our own power? That is it. How do we protect our own position of power? That is all they care about. And we've got to challenge them with a new ideology. We've got to challenge them with the old ideology, really. And there's a better way of doing all this commercialization. There's a better way of doing it. And it's all about digital tech infrastructure. I mean, as abstract as that sounds, this is what it's all about. That we've got to set up, and the Premier League could be doing this, but they're not. I found out about this, I think, in 2020. It was a video from, I think, 2019. The best way to do it, and you might have seen this because they're talking about it, they're going to do it. Why it's not an operation? Because they're incompetent. You do the Premier League broadcasting from a single digital source, like Amazon, like Netflix. Apple are already doing this in the MLS. And you broadcast it to 188 countries worldwide. It also makes it hard as a hack. You can't hack Netflix that easy, you know. So what you've got here is 200 million people already paying £30 or upwards of that to access Premier League football. Charge them £10 a month. It's £24 billion a year. Premier League wages, about $4 billion. How much does it cost to run? Less than $1 billion a year. So what you've got here, imagine if that company was owned by us. And this is not, you don't even need to innovate. You just need to imitate. We could take 100 people from Silicon Valley and go, we will pay you £3 billion in 5 years or 2 years, set up the digital tech infrastructure. We take that and we own English football's broadcasting, and we do it together. We get the government to fund it, and then we pay back the government, because there's a new public ownership model called a public commons partnership. Basically, it's a huge corporation. I know this is a huge leap, by the way. This is like 0 to 100 miles an hour. I understand. It's hard to kind of get this across. You've got to think. The book does it, but you set this corporation up. The government initially fund it. We will pay them back, because when you're earning somewhere between 20 and 30 billion pounds a year, you know, you can afford to pay people back quite quickly. We own that corporation, and we've got to attack this European Super League structure by taking our clubs away from the billionaires who are going to move our clubs into this structure and then rename everything. They'll have home stadiums all over the world. Spurs B versus Liverpool B, whoever. No one cares but us. The rest of the world watches the European Super League. So if we don't do anything, we're going to lose status anyway as the best.
Would the English clubs? I mean, listen. It sparked a lot of debate in the chat, which is quite interesting. Obviously, I'm listening to you. I'm reading the chat. A lot of people saying, "Sorry, listen, I like what this guy's saying. I just don't agree with that." Not this comment, by the way. Sorry, I just happened to be on this one. Big up, Ghost. Hope you're well. Lots of people saying, "Well, look, this can't happen, Micky, without the English clubs. Like, because of the money in the Premier League, we've got the most money in this country, so there's no way it will happen. There's people saying that the fans won't allow it to happen.
Right. Let's just deal with that now. Our clubs are typical businesses owned privately by foreigners, the biggest ones. Spurs aren't, but you're going to be sold to oil. Oil will inevitably come in because this is who they work for. It's either US private equity or the oil industry. This is who owns football. The fans won't let it happen. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? They will just take it. The Premier League are working for the people who are setting up the European Super League. It happens incrementally. It happens slowly. Legally speaking, there's nothing we can do. The regulation, they write it. The regulators don't even regulate anyway. The Premier League want the government out because they have got... Who put the Premier League in charge? Who voted for these people? They are self-appointed. They are self-regulated. These people are going to foresee the transition from English football over to a European Super League structure. The people who own our clubs don't give a toss about our heritage. They don't care. But
what if we all protest?
It's a billionaire dream. They're going to set it up.
But what if again, I'm playing devil's advocate. For me, I find this very interesting, and I can see it happening just because of the way the world is going. I can see it happening. Yes, they failed a couple of years ago. They failed with that attempt. But like anything, when this is, I see it a very simplistic way. When these billionaires with these ideas get something in their head, they don't get told no. They get told no for a moment, and then they go, that angle doesn't work. Let's go again with this in place. So even if every one of us, every English football fan, right, we all European Super League out, we don't want you, would it happen? Could it still happen if all of us don't want it?
Yeah, because this is about the rest of the world. I think a lot of people around the rest of the world do want it. You know, and what about they're really focused on the Asian markets, the North American markets, because that's where most people are. The Americans have got the most consumers. This is where the focus is: Asia, North America, and Europe. And a lot of people would want this. It makes a lot of sense. The best players play each other constantly. You know, that's what they want. We don't have my argument is this: that initial setup was faux. It's done to normalize, psychologically normalize it. We're all talking about a European Super League. I said 10 years to normalize something in the cultural consciousness. Where are we going to be in 2031? Interesting. I mean, I think in 2028, you're going to get the transition to a digital streaming platform. I mean, how have we not entered the digital age? It's 2025. We're still in the satellite age in football. It's a joke. These people are a joke. The Premier League, they don't do anything. But anyway, we're going to enter it in 2028 because that's when Sky's contract is up. And then, you know, in a few years later, it gradually just shifts. More and more power is being ceded to billionaires. They're going to do this. I want to briefly mention that, listen, they're looking down the line. They're looking 10 years, 5-year, 10-year plans. No one, not one single football fan is turning around to everyone else and going, are we looking down the line? No, it's all short-termism. I mean, we've not even looked in the rearview mirror because we don't even know what happened, how this happened. It's perpetual short-termism. Let's look down the line. This is a possibility. Brexit. We're outside the EU. It means you can just take the football clubs. You can just nationalise them. And there's nothing they can do. We're outside, because we're outside the EU's liberalisation laws. You can't have natural state monopolies inside the EU. They would go to the European courts. It'd be a really messy, drawn-out affair. You can just nationalise property. You can just nationalise businesses. As long as it's in the public interest. And the European Court of Human Rights says this. You've got to do it legally and you've got to compensate them fairly. So what we're going to do is this. Set up a political movement that demands that every single football club in England is nationalised, but the state won't own it. We will. The state will use the state as a lever to buy our football clubs. How much do they cost? Barely anything. You can nationalise football for 2/3 the price of track and trace. It's a website, mate, a spreadsheet. You can nationalise football clubs for around the similar cost of the Elizabeth line. They cost somewhere between 25 and 30 billion. Nothing. And if we own the superstructure, the broadcasting, we can pay that back in a season. So this is the idea. With the powers in our hands, if you want to rise up, You've got to go now, because when this Super League structure comes in, 5 years, 10 years, maybe it's 15 years, it's happening.
Mickey,
we don't have the power.
What most are saying, and again, listen, I've not got an opinion on this at the moment. What most are saying is, Danny's definitely come. Big up to Dan, one of my fellow YouTubers. He's saying, but without the Sky money, the Virgin money, and the amount England pays to watch football. Oh, are you still there, Mickey? Oh, I think we've lost Mickey for a second. We'll get him back on, hopefully, in a minute. Lots of people are having this very similar opinion, that these other leagues need to do this because they're broke, and that without us they can't do this. People seem very sure that the English teams won't do it. They don't need to do it. The money in the Premier League. But for me, the way I see it is just that the money from the European Super League will usurp what the owners can make from the Premier League. Isn't that the be-all and end-all of it?
The naive, I don't want to have a go at anyone. I'm just believe passionately in this. I'm just saying the naivety is incredible. These billionaires are chomping at the bit to get the European Super League over the line. Of course they are. These are American businessmen. These are oil states in the Middle East who are wanting to sports wash reputations and increase their visibility on the world stage. I mean, that's why Qatar are in football. If you own oil, and these are authoritarian regimes, things go very wrong very quickly sometimes. You'll lose your life. There's no reason why a country couldn't come in and just invade them, take their oil. So by putting themselves on the world stage, getting relationships with France, for example, they make themselves visible. It's a way of protecting their own power. So that's what Saudi Arabia are doing. That's why they're in football. They perpetuate their own power. They secure their position, their own power. These people, they want a European Super League. It's a World Super League. That's where it ends up. This is the monopolization process. If you just follow it through to its end phase, this is inevitable. And the idea that we've got any power, what planet are you living on? Where's the democracy in English football? What we need to do is this: set up a political movement, write a constitution, own the broadcasting, own the gambling companies, own the football clubs, have a huge corporation that makes tens of billions of pounds every single year in it to Britain, and we can use that money for skills and training in the NHS, in social care. It's a really, really good political idea. What you've got to do is believe in it, because it is possible. And I understand the cynicism that this is this is not possible. It totally is possible. And in fact, this is a great way to take on the billionaires. In the wider economy, it's harder. In football, you can just ring fence it. It's just a sport. It's just a game. We can take these on, I'm telling you. But what we've got to do is switch our philosophy, our mindset. We've got to believe that A, we can do this. B, we've got to believe in a fairer system for football. And we've got to turn around and say, listen, sometimes you've got to lose a bit of advantage. Every football fan that I speak to, it's people like Liverpool fans, they go, what about my advantage? What about our team getting a bigger advantage? In the book, what I've done is I've set up how you can do this. Basically, to say you've got to do a wage cap, make it 300 million, but then you can sign 5 players, 4 players, 3 players outside the wage cap. So it gives the bigger teams a slight advantage, and it means that you can still sign Haaland or whoever. And you infuse it with locality. You make tickets free. I mean, or £5. The policing costs, it's about £2 each. It's nothing. When you've got 50,000, we could just totally revolutionise football. Make it about community. Make it about fairness. Make it about integrity, mate.
We have all the money. We don't need anything. They need us.
Savva, we don't have any money.
I think. Hang on. I think he's referring to. I think he's referring to the same thing that Dan is. They're referring to the Premier League has all the money. People are saying, look, people who get relegated, the teams that get relegated from the Premier League make more money than the team that wins the Liga. So people are saying European Super League needs us, as in England. England doesn't need the European Super League, but you don't agree with that, right?
No, the people who are saying this, I understand why they're saying it, but what they don't understand is the Premier League work for the billionaires. Who is English football? The Premier League. Who do the Premier League work for? The billionaires. Do you think they work for us? Are you that humiliated? Are you that blind that you think these people who are basically just phasing us out of football, they've turned football into a consumer product? Great, because that's what the billionaires want. There's no democracy in English football at all. These are authoritarian regimes. Sounds like a big word to say, but it's exactly what it is. We need to attack the Premier League. And by I don't mean physically. What I mean is we need to attack the power structure. Because if you're talking about, we've got all the money, the English club, the monopolization process is even more extreme on the continent. The same teams win perpetually. So therefore, the billionaires want a bigger market. Football, they want the bet. What they're doing at the minute, the Premier League.
Oh, we've lost you again, Micky. We've lost you. We've lost Micky again. Yeah, but Dan, Dan, I don't think you're listening to what he's saying. He's saying that the English. Okay, again. I know, but without the Premier League, nothing will happen. But isn't the point here that the Premier League clubs aren't the owners aren't English of these Premier League clubs? They right. I think that's the point, Dan. The owners of the Premier League clubs. I'm going to try and put it into layman's terms. Tell me if I'm wildly off here. Premier League clubs earning loads and loads of money at the moment. Yeah, don't particularly need anything else. European Super League comes along and says, yeah, but we can double, triple, quadruple your money by coming to play in this big market here. What's then the pull for the English teams to stay? And the question I'll ask is this. What if every other country, what if you've got a European Super League where Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico go in, right? Juventus, Milan, Juventus, Milan, Napoli, Roma, they go in. I've missed out someone probably, right? Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, they go in. PSG have gone in. All of these big countries go in. Do these fans, do you believe that then the English teams will be the only ones that turn around and go, we don't want any part of that?
It's laughable.
I'm just asking because I don't.
Yeah, I know. But
I think they'd all follow suit.
People turn around and say the Premier League, they need us more than we need. Who do the Premier League work for? Who owns our clubs? It's not you, mate. The Premier League do not work for English football. They work for themselves. They work for their own power, and they work for the billionaires. This is what's happening. You can pretend that you've got some fan power if you want, but we haven't. I don't want to turn around and say, I told you so. I want to turn around and say, let's move on this. Let's do something about it. Let's go on the front foot. Let's be ambitious. Is that what the British are about? No, it isn't. At the minute, we're in a state of British decline. We've lost our empire. We've lost our football clubs. It's just another process in this declinist journey we're on. Let's turn around and say, right, we're going to fight for our past and we're going to fight for our future. There's a better way to do this. Get the Premier League out of the way. Get the billionaires out of the way. And let's own our football clubs, and then we can stop it from happening. This is about property rights, really. We don't own our clubs. We don't own them. They work for the Super League structure. They want to go in to the Super League structure. They signed up initially to the Super League structure, and the monopolization process is increasing the likelihood of a European Super League structure happening. The first one was faux. It was a fake announcement to normalize it in your head, and it's happening.
But Micky, what's the again, just sitting on the fence. What's the difference? A lot of people are talking about this in the chat as well. So what's the difference between a European Super League and the Champions League? Because the Champions League now have changed their format. There's more teams in it, more money, more games. What's the if I'm Man City, if I'm Chelsea, if I'm Arsenal, Liverpool, whoever, someone turns around and goes, right, forget all that Champions League stuff. You're coming into this Super League. What is the Super League? Why is that better or different or more advantageous for these teams than the current setup of the Champions League?
Well, you could just set up this superstructure, vertical integration. They own everything. You look at the UEFA club competition, the world. So there's £1 billion. They're putting £1 billion. Where's that money going? It's staying at the top. And you've got profit sustainability rules, which means we talked about how smaller clubs can't get up there. It's just a few clubs that control everything. You own that; they will control the broadcasting, all the commercial deals. It'll all be spread into one huge, giant corporation, huge structure. Sorry, and then there's no relegation. They don't have to worry about that.
Is that what we're saying? So there'd be no relegation from the Super League? Is that what we're saying?
There'll probably 1 or 2 tiers. Right. They might do it with 20 clubs. What about they could do it with 40 clubs? It'll be a worldwide thing. And it'll be the same teams playing each other. They'll probably have a cup competition. It becomes like its own domestic setup. That's how you've got to think about this. A couple of cups and a league. And it happens, the whole world's involved. And all the football, all the domestic leagues are basically there for players to. They'll own all the clubs. It's a huge. All the clubs at the top will own all the clubs at the bottom. You look now, multi-club ownership models are already in place. Leeds United are probably going to get taken over by Red Bull soon. This is this is the commercialization of football. This is the way. This is the direction of travel. This is where it's going. There's no way of stopping this unless we own our own clubs. Unless we actually take over the Premier League and get them to work for us, because they don't work for us. The clubs are not our clubs. The Premier League work for the billionaires, and this structure is perfect. It allows you to it's a springboard into markets. You you glamorize yourself all around the world. It's soft power, this, as well as hard economic power. So the advantages of a Super League are huge for the billionaires. They can't wait for this to happen. It is going to happen. And I've come on here because I did a book launch 2 weeks ago with the Clapton FC fans. It was great down in East London, and I had another one planned at the in the Volley pub in Hackney. Now the book launch, we only sold 7 tickets. I've been trying to get on the podcast, so I've got a few lined up. I'm going to get West Ham fans in there. I want Spurs, obviously. I've done a Twitter space with Change for Tottenham. I want to appeal directly to you because they're going to take the ticket link down, but the pub are still going to do it. I need you to come down to the Volley pub in Hackney on Friday, the 4th of April. And I'd like you to email me because I can see who's coming, basically. If you can somehow get this, and it's a lot, it sounds a bit crazy, but if I can get 20 or 30 or 40 people, I'll be, that's enough for me. We're going to set up, I'll do a presentation that shows you what's going to happen. I'll explain the theory of how we nationalize English football and how it's going to be not owned by the state, but owned by us. And I'm going to appeal to fans to say, we need to set up, if you're interested in a movement that is across the clubs, Gooners, Hammers, Spurs, we all fight the same war. We're fighting for our past and our future here. And we're going to set up a political movement that is, we're not humiliated. We're not arguing for scraps. We're not going to negotiate with the clubs. We're not going to negotiate with the Premier League. We have a political vision and a statement that says we're going to take over. So we need to build this. We need to do something. There is no movement, not one single, for everything we've suffered, for the humiliation, there's not a single movement. Let's change that. So Savva, I know we've obviously got our numbers and stuff like that, but maybe if I just put my email address, if you put it out there, and then just get hold of me and say, listen, I'll turn up, mate. I'm not even going to try and sell you a book. I'm just saying, this is about a switch in vision. Go on the front foot. I know we start small and we build.
No, I completely agree. Look, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Dad definitely massively disagrees with you. There's a few in there that agree with you. There's a few in there that think that there's no way this is happening. For me, I never say never. I think the way the Premier League's gone, I think you're right. All the owners now. I mean, how many of the owners in the Premier League are English? Like, how many of them have got the Premier League and the English League's best interest at heart? They're there to make money. So I can see. I don't know if it's exactly what you're saying, but I see a movement is coming. I don't think it's going to be imminent. I don't think it's going to be 6 months, 1 year we're there. But I do think you're right. Yeah. I think it's a normalization that, like, even look at the Premier League, the Champions League this year. I hate the Champions League format. Like,
it's ridiculous.
I quite like a league table format. How many teams can be in a Champions League? How many champions of European leagues are there? 8, exactly. 9, 10, 11?
You can finish 5th now this season, can't you, in the English Premier League and get in the Champions League?
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Exactly. This is why I believe it, because money. Yeah. If this was a true Champions League, you could turn around and go, the top 2 from each country, the champions and the runners-up, go into a big Champions League. We're now at the stage where 5 clubs from a country can be in it. It's, if I'm not wrong, 36 teams, right? If I'm not wrong, is it 36 that are in it?
Yeah.
And then you've got 36 in the Europa, 36 in the conference. So we're now, if my maths works out really quickly, that's 108 teams. I think my maths works well there. That's 108 teams.
Very good.
Playing in European competition. 108. We're literally at the stage where half of every league plays in Europe. If that is possible, because look at the difference between that from 20 years ago. Think where we're going to be in 20 years. I don't think there'll be a Europe. I don't think there will. I think literally the Super League will take over, and I think you'll have different tiers of the Super League. I agree with you.
And then you get the South Americans involved and the Asians involved. This is how it's follow the money. Okay. And also, listen, I'll say this because I think we've talked for so long, and I know you want to chat about other stuff. And but listen,
no, you're okay. It's, just quickly, Micky. I mean, another Spurs YouTuber has asked if he can come on. I don't know how much time you've got.
I'm flat out, but I want to come on next week, definitely, if we can do evenings. I really want to speak to everybody, try and get them down as many Spurs fans, Spurs for change. You know, even if you don't believe this European Super League thing's happening, what we've got to do is put pressure on the Premier League and make them work for us, because we all agree on this. We are being frozen out. We have been frozen out. Football's been commercialised beyond fandom now, and there's a better way of doing this product. If we were in the stadiums, we've got a better product. If Spurs was a cauldron of intensity, working class fans, real communities through the generations, you know, that's what football's about. If we can bring that back, we've got a better commercial product. We have to put pressure on the Premier League. There is a movement. We're in the embryonic stage, of course. People are coming to me. People want this. I want you to come down to the Volley and put your point forward. We need a name. We need a website. We build. I mean, this is. There's no celebrity influencers behind this. There's no journalists behind this. It's fans. This is what it's about, and it's about. I'm using the podcast network that people like yourself, Savva. These are great little places. You can talk to thousands of people, and you've got great little network, great communities online here, and that's what I'm using. And I'm targeting London at the minute to go down and let's settle what I'm going to describe as the Southern Front. If it can't happen next Friday, we go again. But if you're interested and you want to switch from being cynical and moaning to actually doing something about it, boots on the ground, let's go. Contact me. My email, if we'll put it in the. Is it okay if you could tweet it out or whatever on your?
Yeah.
It's quite simple. It's yahoo.co.uk.
I'll tell you what. If you post it, can you actually? I'll tell you what. Tell me what it is, and I'll type it out right now to the chat.
It's Micky. So it's Micky without an E. Micky PKERR. Micky P. Kerr, all one word, at yahoo.co.uk. Send me an email that just says, "Listen, I'm coming," and I'll say to the venue at the Volley, "Listen, we're coming down. Presentation. We're starting this movement in London. It's already happening. Fans across the north are beginning to come together. Spirit of Shankly, 1958, who want the Glazers out. I went and stood with them 2 weeks ago. I'm the first fan to ever do it, to go and stand with another club. This is what we've got to do. And that fight to get Levy out, we want to see all club fan bases supporting it. And, you know, I'm happy to stand with you. Of course, I'll come down. Hammers fans, you know, Gooners, we've got to stand together here.
Have you got 5 minutes first? A couple of questions. I've got a couple of questions, mate, I want to ask.
I've got a million things to do here. So I'm getting phone calls about. I've not booked a hotel. I book comedy events. I've got Tom Stade on tonight, and I've got to sort out his hotel.
No worries. Listen, just quickly, and what I will say is, Danny, I think it'll be a good conversation. Danny's got a good podcast, a good YouTube channel as well. Dan, what I'll do, if it's all right with you and Micky, I'll give you each other's number, and you can chat away from this so that you can sort something out. And I would really recommend. Have you spoken to Sean Butler?
No, but I've had his number passed on by Jim Oso Spurs. Really nice guy. But yeah, I've got his number. I will contact him if he's up for it. I've got his number.
He's someone that very much loves this style of conversation. Listen, let's get a couple of questions in. Micky, we're going to do quick fire, so just like short, sharp answers.
Of course.
Where are we? Let me get a few in. Someone said, for example, here, and this wasn't a question, but I thought it was interesting. It's My Face has said, to be fair, the Forest owner is a Greek billionaire. Go on, the Greeks. So they aren't a clean club either in that aspect. Just one more club that got into the top without spending loads. So with that in mind, why can't Forest stay up there with the big boys if they do have a Greek billionaire owner?
It's a good question, and it's all to do with the way that they've regulated English football. You can only spend profit and sustainability. So if you're not making loads of money, you can't spend loads of money. I mean, that's monopolization. That's a monopoly. So what will happen? I can predict it. What's happened to Forest? What's happened to Wolves? That'll happen to Forest. they'll get the best players stripped off them. I think they'll make the European Super League, but look where they'll be in 2 seasons, 3 seasons. They will fade. Only the biggest spenders can stay up at the top. And now you've got a top 7, but even Newcastle are struggling because they can't spend the amount that they've got, if that makes sense, because it's all about the commercial deals. They're not that big yet. And so they can't even spend it. And look, Isak, who's been great. Liverpool are taking him. So it's Spurs, you're not at the top. You're not at the top.
We know that.
Everything goes up to just a few massive commercial clubs. The Manchester clubs, Liverpool, and the 3 big London clubs. But yeah, these people, they're not English. They're not, they're billionaires. They're ruthless. This is a power struggle. We've got to get involved. We're losing a game. We're not even playing here.
Excellent. Rinketic, big up to you, my man. Said, you keep talking about the Super League. How many clubs would actually join? The Germans won't allow it. The UK team. So the UK teams and 2 to 3 of the Spanish ones. And
yeah, right. It's a good point about the German clubs. They have got democratic ownership, 49-51, but they'll have to join. They'll have to join. You had the 12 clubs, right? Yeah. More than 12 want in. This is the perfect structure for billionaires. They're setting it up. We're already down the road here. This is not something that's abstract. You can see it happening. It doesn't happen, next season. It's happening if you come back in 10 years, where are we in 2035? We'll be a lot further down the line. How many clubs? I don't know. Somewhere between, could it be 20? Could it be 40? You've just mentioned 108 European teams. It won't be that many, but we're going to have eventually the South American clubs. We're going to have the maybe some new Asian clubs that have set up. That's how it's going to work. I don't know how many. I don't know. I don't think they know yet. But the idea is monopolize. That's it.
It will be a World Super League. Just a couple of really quick ones. Really quick ones. Thank you for that question, Rinketic. Philly, I said, what happens to clubs like Aston Villa?
They just remain in a backwater domestic league, and they will be owned. They will be funded partly by the billionaire Super League structure because they can't afford for these teams not to exist. But so they will be funded. They will work. Everybody works for the structure. Everything goes up. We all work for it. We are funded by it. That's what's going to happen. They will push some money down.
But why? So why wouldn't an Aston Villa? Let's have a look at. Yeah, we know the big teams: Chelsea, City, Arsenal, Liverpool. Why wouldn't a Newcastle, an Aston Villa? Why would those types of clubs, who are probably the next tier down from those big clubs, why wouldn't they receive an invite to the Super League, or could they?
They might do. How many English teams are going to go? Don't know. That's not the point. The point is this: let's say 12 English clubs go. Whoever those 12 are, you've got your own version of it. We know 06 of them are. What eventually happens is those 12 clubs, 10, 20 years later, aren't called that name. They change the so
Aston Villa will be like the Birmingham Raiders or something like
it won't have anything to do with England. Yeah, exactly. Well, you're laughing, but there's something Raiders could, because the art of switching a football club's location has already been achieved. They did it in Milton Keynes, for example, Wimbledon. In fact, it happens in American football. And guess who facilitated that shift? Stan Kroenke, the guy that owns Arsenal. They just move a club's location. These clubs will play all over the world. This is how Aston Villa will still exist. No, they won't have much of a commercial pull beyond England because it all goes up.
I quite like this idea of a Super League, because if Spurs don't go in it, we might have a chance of finishing top 4 in the backwater English league. Just last question, then I am gonna wrap up, Micky. By the way, you lot in the chat are really tight. 96 likes. Come on, surely we're better than that over here, aren't we? At Football Heritage TV. Listen, it's been a very different conversation. People want new content. This is new content for you. Dan has said, and as I said, I'll give you each other's numbers. So the UK government would let the EPL crash for 4 to 5 teams to go into the Super League. TV, games, etc., tax. He's got a point, hasn't he?
Yeah. Who do the government work for? Who do our government work for? They work for the people that they work for the billionaires. You look at what they do with the disability cuts, etc. There is no wealth tax, and what they've done, the billionaires, they do this: government bad, regulation bad. That's the brainwashing, because they want that space. If you have a small state, who replaces it? The answer is corporations. Who owns the corporations? The billionaires. This is what they're doing. Constant normalization of monopolization and corporate greed. Our politicians, yeah, of course, but they'll have no choice. There's more than our government involved here. There's other governments. There's the UEFA, the FIFA, this power they have compared with this corporate structure of all these billionaires, oil money, US private equity. In this country, we have no digital tech infrastructure at all. It's all American software. Even our own government servers. You saw recently with the missile thing. We can't do it without the Americans. Our politicians work for the billionaires. If you know. It sounds conspiracy, I know, but it's conspiracy facts, not conspiracy theory. So the idea that that our government can stop this when it starts to happen, and as regards to the German teams, they'll have to join. They'll have to join, and because eventually it'd be great if the Germans could set up outside this, and if they did, we should back them. There's a way of fighting back. There's a way of doing it, but fans have got to get together. We've got to act. We've got to have a vision. And we've got to be as bold as the billionaires. Think like a billionaire. That's how we take them on.
Well, look, Micky, I mean, look, for me, as I said, I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is something will happen. I've got no doubt something will happen. The amount of money that is in football now. I completely agree with you.
We're in between eras, mate. We are in between eras. You can see the regulation getting weirder. There's a lot of rules being broken. Because we're in between eras, we're transitioning. It's the beginnings of this have already happened. Yes, next season will be the same as this season. Let me make some predictions. The monopolies have failed. They're going to hit back. I think we could see 2 definitely in the 90s, maybe 3 teams in the 90s. The average points, mean average of the last 3 seasons, for the relegated teams is 24 points. So it's going down and down and down. The teams that go up will go down straight away. And you'll see the monopolies fight back. I reckon 3 of the big 6/7 are going to fire. And when they fire, they get 90+ points. So that's what we'll start seeing. That's my prediction next season. And if this starts happening, this starts coming true, then maybe some people can start listening. And, you know, the good thing about football is you can make predictions. Put my neck on the line. That's what I think we'll see. I think we'll see 2 teams, maybe 3 of the big 6 getting 90+ points. Because they respond. You can't have Nottingham Forest. You can't have the middle classes doing that. Get out of the way. We own this.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is we often see this. We often see a team have a good year, as I said. And everyone, I remember when Leicester won the league, everyone was like, oh, this is great for football. We're going to see a new team up there every year compete. It lasted 1 season, didn't it? They won the league and they disappeared. I think the same thing will happen with Forest. I'm not saying they're going to turn into a relegation team, but I think next year you'll probably see Nottingham Forest get back to some sort of mid-table. They'll have Europe as well. Their bigger players are going to be taken by the bigger. It is just the way football works. But Micky, look, I do want to leave it there. Listen, thank you very much. It's been very, very different. Guys and girls, just so you know, before I let Micky go, I will be continuing till about midday. So we can look at some football and we can discuss the aftermath of this conversation. Thank you to all those that showed you can have a difference of opinion without being rude. Sorry that some people were rude and dictate what other people need to do. But Micky, thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me on. And to everybody, you know, if I get 5 emails, 10 emails, great. Just email me and say, I'm up for next week. Let's start. You know, I know that the cynicism is a big blanket of cynicism here, but we've got to do something, and I'm hoping I can win over hearts and minds. And let's go on the front foot. Let's get together and let's fight for what football should be and could be.
Oh, I'd give anything to go back to White Hart Lane, 30,000 people, horrible, disgusting burger where players wanted to play for your club. There was no nonsense from fans about but he's played 2 games a week. He must be tired. I can't be bothered. It's all so pathetic now.
We can do it, mate. And if you want to, Football, The People's Shame is available in all good bookstores. It's also available on Audible. It's a great guy, a voice actor that did it. Football, The People's Shame, How to Revolutionise National Sport. That's ready for you now if you want to read it and see it and begin to think differently, because that's what we've got to do. It's about a state of mind, this.
Yeah. if you click on this link, it will, I know it looks smaller than the link you sent me. This is the shortened URL that will take you to Amazon for Micky's book, Football, the People's Shame, How to Revolutionize a National Sport. Micky, you've been a great sport yourself. Really appreciate you coming on, mate. As with anything in football opinions, we will see. Watch this space.
Yeah.
Some things are coming.
Do you know what? Thanks, mate. Yeah, you're right, and we will see. And I want to thank everyone that's joined the debate, and I really appreciate the time. And it's a privilege to speak to football fans, genuine football fans.
Spurs fans. Everyone wants to speak to our Spurs fans. Last thing I'll say is this: I will end it on this. The portion with yourself. I remember the day after the Super League collapsed. I remember the day after, and I don't know whether it was Carve Solocol or I think it was Carve Solocol of Sky Sports. He turned around the next day and they asked him, why did it collapse? What went wrong? And he went, this is a setback, nothing more. He went, this will be around for years to come. And I remember thinking, I agree. I remember thinking that we'll fight it, but eventually the money will be so big for these owners. These owners don't look at. Sorry, I know we're still going. Look at Daniel Levy at Spurs. Everyone's like, "Oh, Spurs won't do it." This man has got Korean patisserie companies sponsoring Tottenham Hotspur. Like, what's that got to do with Spurs? You know, money. That's what it's got to do with Spurs. Money, money, money. So I agree with you.
Mate, you're right, and I will say this: it wasn't a step back; it was a step forward. It's the first stage of many other stages to come, a phase. Normalize, normalize, normalize. The concept is there now, out in the cultural consciousness. It gets normalized. But anyway, let's fight back. Let's do this.
Bobby, sorry, Micky. I don't know.
I'll take Bobby. I like that, mate.
I'll tell you why. It's because I see my man Bobby K in the chat. Keep saying something about Andy Murray's mum.
It's a nice bob, mate.
I love it. I love it. Listen, Micky, thanks very much. Listen, the links are there. The email address is there, people. Get in contact. Google Micky P. Kerr, see what comes up. And he's quite a funny guy as well. So lots to be entertained about by Micky.
Take care. Thank you very much, Savva.
Take care, mate. See you later. Bye-bye. Guys and girls, yes, something different. Oh, sorry, I thought I was going to hiccup. No, I'm not. Sorry, I've kicked you. I've kicked him out. Listen, guys and girls, something different, something interesting. I don't know what is right, what is wrong, what's happening. Will there be a Super League? Will there not? Maybe it'll be a different guise. Maybe it will exist but won't have English teams. I don't know. All I know is the world of football is so far removed from what it used to be that I just believe that anything is possible. The money in football is absolutely redonkulous right now. I have put the link out to my group to see if anyone wants to pop on. If no one does in the next 5-10 minutes, then let's then we will wrap up the show. But guys and girls, we are now only 7 days away. We are only 7 days away from Tottenham playing again. It's been way too long, way too long. And to get ourselves in the mood, myself, Ben Kaufman, Phil P, Lubo, a few of us, we're going down to the Orient tonight. Hopefully get to meet Jamie Donnelly, see what's going on there. But I will leave it there. I put the link out. No one wanted to come on, so I'll leave it there. Guys, girls, when am I back? I'm not sure when I'm back yet. I don't think have I got anything planned for tomorrow morning? Not sure I have. Oh, Danny's jumped on. Danny has jumped on. Hello, mate. You all right?
Well, hang on. Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Yourself? That was a good show. I liked what the fellow was talking about.
Yeah. Just something different, something interesting. And again, it's I don't think at this stage, I don't think there's any right or wrong with it as well. I think we all kind of acknowledge something's going on in the world of football and that money's taken over. It's just what does that look like, right? Is that fair?
It's definitely. I just think the main point I personally believe he was missing is how powerful the English Premier League is. The English Premier League don't need the world. The world needs the English Premier League. I mean, the government, with the amount of money it just gets through us not playing games at 3 o'clock and through the TV and through everything else, is more than every other European league put together for what they pay. In America, you pay $6 to watch every game you want to watch. In England, you pay 45 quid.
I need to move to America.
You know, well, that's why I run most of my stuff through Peacocks with a bloody VPN.
Yeah.
And there's so much of it that if something like this will happen, but the Champions League will keep fighting it. I mean, they say about the millionaires, billionaires, whatever. Okay, you make this one massive thing, yeah? But why are a lot of the billionaires who own the English clubs going to want to start spreading their billionaire money with the European super clubs when they can easily make more money just out of England? England is the most powerful country on the planet when it comes to the currency. Our currency is more than the euro, is more than the dollar. When it comes to football, the amount the English pay for the football, it put the rest of Europe and the rest of the world put together. It doesn't even touch what we bloody pay for it. Why? Because we're stupid enough to pay for it that way. Why? It's all good saying, oh, if we went against this and whatever, and it should be like this and it should be like that. Yeah, it should be like a lot of things, but it won't. That is why we pay that much. There is too much in the Premier League. They need us desperately. We don't need them. Barcelona can't spend the money. Look at what Barcelona had to do in the end. They had to sell, what was it, 30%, 25% of themselves because they just couldn't afford anymore. As soon as Messi left, Barcelona half collapsed, basically. They was already on the way. Real Madrid, okay, they've still got money behind them because they're sponsored by the bloody country, for God's sake. But apart from that, nothing. Germany, Munich, and plus they would never let that happen in Germany. France, as all they've got is PSG. With England, you can even go down to our middle, like our middle table teams, and they earn more than bloody, let's say, Leverkusen, Dortmund, Atletico Madrid, Marseille, Lyon, whatever else. We do not need the Super League. The Super League needs us. There is too much money in England. The whole of Europe is in recession. It doesn't get made official, but it is. England is in recession. But the pound is still that much more stronger than the dollar and the euro. And the amount we pay for it, they need us. We don't need them.
Sure, but doesn't this depend on, like, I think it's a really interesting point from Terry O'Shea saying that 10 of the English clubs are already owned by Americans. There is more money to be earned in the ESL. Why would a billionaire not want more money? It's all they care about. Doesn't a lot of this depend? Again, devil's advocate, I don't feel strongly about this either way. This is not one I will die on a hill for. I will die on a hill about Ange Postecoglou, right? I'm not dying on a hill about the European Super League. Isn't this, Ben? Doesn't this depend on who owns the clubs at the time of anything going through? For example, if 14 American owners, for example, own English football clubs, are they really going to sit there and go, yeah, well, what's best for us is England, what's best for us is the Premier League? Or will they just look at the big shiny pound note and go, hang on, look at the money we can be made? Just throwing it out there as a theory.
What will happen is you can't crash the local economy. You can't crash the local economy. If they start Dan is saying it, I totally agree with him. The government will not allow them to crash the local economy for the sake of football. They won't let it happen. They'll stick. They will take their licenses to run football businesses away from them. They do it like that. They say, no, you can't have it. That is why the problem I have with this is it depends on where you see it. Because are we just replacing a monopoly with another monopoly? Because if we start a political movement, who's in control of it?
Yeah.
Are we electing? Who's elected to the board? What we're saying is, we don't like those billionaires. We should be in charge. But then we become the billionaires, and then they will say, well, we don't like them either. It's shifting the apple cart from one set of people we don't like to another set of people we don't know. for me, it's nonsense for me personally, because that football clubs are businesses. Yes, they are businesses, but they are so rooted in the local economy and the history of the country. They're not going to do it.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it. See, for me, it's just seizing power. It's seizing power from people you don't like. And for me, it's just not going to happen. Nationalisation for the sake of nationalisation, I don't believe in it. A lot of people say, oh, let's renationalise the railways. Do they not remember what happened 100 years ago when all the railways were nationalised? Half of them closed because they couldn't run them. People were asking for more and more money. The ticket prices went up like that. And then Dr. Beechin, if people that know their railway history, Dr. Beechin shut all the railways. So yes, we owned all the railways, but none of them were open. We couldn't get on a train. So yes, nationalisation in some parts are good, but you can't nationalise everything. There's got to be some.
But when you're saying
other things,
when you're saying again, everything I say here is devil's advocate. Please, I don't care, right? I when we're saying they won't do it to the local economy, they won't be allowed to do it because of the local economy. Who is they in this scenario? Who's they? But do the government have say over, let's say the government turn around to Man City's owners and say, you can't join the European Super League. Why would
Man
City owners have to listen?
That would go through FIFA and UEFA. If they are deciding to take the football club and play, they will just take their license to run as a business away from them.
Exactly. He's exactly right. The government could do that. Look what they did to Chelsea. They'd just do to them exactly what they did to Chelsea. Yeah. And Man City would not be able... Look at it this way, Savva. Look at it this way. How easily they done it to Chelsea. Right. Let's say, just for example, Arsenal, Spurs, Man City, Man U, Liverpool, Chelsea go into that league. I'd say, yeah, go into that league. Okay, they go into the Super League. English government goes, no. We still want our tax money. And they said, well, we're part of this European League then. English government turns around and says, right, then you're not allowed to sell no goods over here.
Give them
so what would, hang on a sec, Ben.
Yeah.
So what would happen then? They would say, right, then Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, you're illegal over here. You cannot sell no products, no Liverpool shirts, no nothing. The teams would crash. There are not enough supporters in the rest of the world who would be able to support that aspect of it. Yeah, there's certain ones who want to do it, but that's if it goes the right way for them. This has to go the way that the government sees the best for it as well. But you've got to look how they make... Go on.
Sorry, just to inject, one of the things that Micky was saying, though, that can't both coexist, i.e., if, again, let's use City as the example because it's easier, right? Everyone hates them anyway because they win everything and they've got 115 charges, which probably won't come forward because of something like this. They don't want to run them out. Right. If Man City turn around and said, right, do we want to join the European Super League? And we're going to join the European Super League under the guise of I'm just going to make up some nonsense, the Blue Devils. I don't know. No, we're going to go as the Blue Devils, the light Blue Devils. But we're going to remain in the Premier League as what Micky was saying there, as Man City B. So you've actually got Man City in the Premier League with a lesser group of players. And then you've got it's such a shit name. I didn't think of anything creative off the top of my head. You've got the light Blue Devils that are now playing in the European Super League with your Erling Haalands and your Rodris and isn't there a way that both can coexist without the club getting in trouble from the government and the FA?
Well, put it this way, yeah. You're just say, for instance, you own a football team in England, yeah. You obviously have to pay your tax money of incomes of whatever the club makes, this and that. It's a big thing in the club, yeah. Okay. So you now go over to this Super League and the government has said, okay, you can go over to that Super League. But now you're in that Super League, you're now paying an extra 10% to us of what you already were. And then they're already having to pay extra for whatever they are in that league because it's going to be part of an EU or whatever and get taxed. They're probably going to end up getting taxed even more money. And they're going to sit there and think, well, do you know what? The English Premier League is the highest, is the biggest in the world. football is not big enough in America to support the Premier League. Not yet. Give it due time. Who knows? But there's 5 bigger sports in America than there is football. And yeah, and if they went and done it anyway, the government did not like it, the government would just cut them out of the country and threaten them. Look at it this way. This might seem like a weird example, but something going through that's political at the moment, if you want to get like that. Why do we still sell cigarettes?
Lobbies.
Tax, money. Cigarettes is meant to kill people.
Yeah,
but they still let it be. But they still let it over here because the tax. That's why you pay £18 for a packet of fags or whatever. Go back to the football side of it. There's so much revenue in the football and in the TV that the government puts their hand in and says thank you. That if they was to let that just go into a Super League, not happening. It would if it did happen, it would have to happen running concurrently, like you said. But then it would then come to how big can a club be? How many clubs can handle it? Will there? There's so much ways round this. It's just not quite as plain Jane simple as I think the fellow was on here thinks it will be.
You can't just You can't just nationalize, can you, Dan? You can't just.
No.
You can't just do that. You can't. You've got to. It goes through. Like I've got a business license because technically I'm a corporation because we're the coffee company. If I do something like that, they will either up my tax rate or they will take my business license away. Simple as that. It's yes, we see them as gargantuan companies. They've still got to follow the rule of law and they've still got to follow regulations that have been set. And people say, "Oh, Brexit, we're not part of the EU anymore." Well, part of Article 50 was nothing happened because we wrote with Article 50. Part of the part of Article 50 was we wrote all of EU law into British law. So we have the same laws anyway. So you can say, "Oh." You can say, oh, we're a different country, not in the EU anymore. We have exactly the same laws.
Exactly. And we still have to go to the EU, Ben, to get bloody permission to do anything.
Yes, we still have to.
That's
Article 50.
Yeah, but that's all going too political on that aspect.
Yeah.
But the fella did make it political. And at the end of the day, unless the government did this, I mean, yeah, the clubs can go and want to do it as much as they want. But where would you rather be as a billionaire? Would you rather be where the money is? I mean, look at the Italian league.
Yeah, but the money will be in the Super League, Dan. So that doesn't make sense.
And
but for the clubs in England, the money's already here. In Italy, there is no money.
But the money in the Super League, this is the point people are making. The money in the Super League will be greater than what they can make here. That's
not necessarily. No,
but
not necessarily.
The amount of money invested into
it. Right. Okay. Then look at it this way. Then, yeah, but then they've got to spread it through big clubs as well. Look at the money that teams like Man City and average Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs at times, and others. Right. Add up your Premier League money, TV, and all this, and also your Champions League money. That's all yours. Whereas if you just go straight into this Super League, whatever money you get is spread through the Super League. You haven't now got the revenue of both sides.
Sure,
now,
but they'll still make more money. That doesn't make sense because they'll still make more money.
Italy
because the money that's going to be pumped into the Super League is going to be absolutely astronomical compared to the Premier League or Champions League. Otherwise, we know that, guys. Otherwise, this wouldn't be a conversation. This wouldn't be happening if there wasn't that possibility. Second of all, people are saying there'll be some deal with someone like Netflix to show this. Right? Let's be fair. They'll want it all streamed in one place, won't they? And it will be a corporate deal with a giant like Netflix where the revenue coming in will be absolutely monstrous.
Technically, that is how you would want it to work. But I'm not talking about the rest of the world, really. I'm talking about England. Then why isn't it already like that? Why are we the biggest whatever we are in the world that pays what we do for the football? That is what the government want. That is how they want it.
You've got to look down, though, at the reason clubs in Italy, for example, are bankrupt. The reason all clubs in Italy are bankrupt is because the local authorities don't let the football teams own their own stadiums. There's only 2 football teams in Italy that own their own stadium. That's why AC Milan and Inter are leaving the San Siro. They said, we don't want that anymore. We can't fix it because of government rules and regulations and this stuff. So we're building our own stadium. Juventus, or the reason Juventus are suffering now, Juventus are suffering now, but they did the right thing by building their own stadium. They left their old stadium and they built their own stadium. Roma are doing it as well. Roma are telling Lazio to sod off, and they're building their own stadium. This is what's now going to happen. So you've got 2 sides of the coin. You've got to have some realm of balance. You can't let the government take all the power over, which is what they've got in Italy, because they don't take the ticket money, because the stadiums are owned by the local municipalities. You've got to have some sort of balance. So
I don't doubt that, Ben. But listen, the fact still remains, whether or not this is going to happen or not. The money that they'll be talking about, the revenue that will be pumped into a European Super League,
would be massive
by the powers that be, will usurp what these clubs can make in the Premier League and the Champions League. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it, right? They just wouldn't be doing it if that sort of money. Because let's be fair, the only reason that these powers that be want this to happen is for revenue. The only reason why, look when it nearly happened. I don't know how close, whatever, brother. Right? Straight away, people like Ben's mate, Daniel Levy, they start looking with pounds in their eyes, don't they? Like, it's pound coins. Sorry, Ben. Like, it's pounds. It's pounds.
We're afternoon tea tonight, Savva, with you and Daniel Levy. It's going to be great.
Mate, but now look at it. Look at it, right? You have a look. There will be, I'm just spitballing here, and welcome, Lee. I think you're going to have investors from America, from Saudi, from Qatar. I think you're just going to have investors from all over the world pumping in ridiculous amounts of money, with people like Netflix being involved. I think there's going to be subscriptions going up on Netflix to watch the Super League. People will pay it. They will. As much as many of us go, I won't watch it. If the option is you can watch Spurs B team versus Wolves, or you're going to watch Man City versus Real Madrid in the Super League, people are going to pay that money. Aren't they, Lee? Aren't they? Lee, agree with me.
I'm correct. Can you hear me all right, Seth?
Yeah, big up, mate.
Sorry, I can't turn my camera on. I'm at work, so I don't want to get caught out. But listen, I just want to jump on very, very quickly, because, and with a caveat, it's very interesting. Listen to that guy. I don't agree with everything he says, and I'm with Ben on the nationalisation piece. I'm not sure that that's the right way to go on that side of it. But one thing I just wanted to jump on and talk about, and Dan, I'm sorry if we usually agree on pretty much most stuff, but on this one I don't agree on, and that's because I've been working in the financial industry for 20 years now, and I see it every day, and we see it right now. The government care about one thing only, and that's revenue coming in, right? They're not going to do anything to stop. If you take Man City as an example, right? You take Man City and say, hey, Man City, you can't go into the European Super League, and Man City and turn around to the government and say, well, hold on a minute, we're going to be scaling our customer base by 10 times. We're going to be quadrupling our revenue. We are still an English company. We are still a PLC company. The government are going to turn around and say, no, you can't do that, because the government are going to get 10 times the amount of tax revenue, right? They are going to, every company that makes more profit is going to pay more tax. The only way that would change is if Man City would say, we are going to remove Man City as a company in England and move it somewhere like the States or somewhere else, and then all of that revenue is gone. That's when the fans jump in and go, hold on a minute, you're destroying our club, you're removing our club. Any business that is going to walk into somewhere that's going to increase their profit and revenue is never not going to say no to that. And that's the issue with football today. They're going where the money's going, right?
So, Lee, just so I understand what you say, what you're basically saying is what a lot of the billionaires do anyway. They just put their business in another country so it don't get taxed over here.
Yes, but that's not what the European Super League is going to be. The Super League will basically be a sporting organisation.
To be part of a Super League, though, you are going to have to set up a separate company to work as a global trademark. You can't just run a separate company. You have to make another company anyway. So just by that logic, then, Ben. So you're saying that if I'm an
athlete, I have to set up a company to go to the Olympics and then go to the World Championships. If I'm a sporting company, as long as those sporting teams are allowed to participate in the competition, I don't think they have to set up, does Tottenham got a separate company to set up to play in the Europa League? I don't think they do. I think it's all down to sporting competition and the rules and that.
And FIFA giving out the licenses for football clubs, though.
Yeah, and FIFA will give out the licenses.
I don't think they will for the ESL because that would compromise FIFA. That would compromise UEFA.
FIFA. I agree with Ben on that one.
These guys are in it. These guys are all in it behind it. As he was, that's one of the things that
it wouldn't surprise me.
Listen, corruption is there. We know it's there. We can see it, and there's no way that they won't want their fingers in the pie, right? It's, as I say, it's all about money. It's all about how much of the cut of the pie they can get. Anyone thinking that it's a level playing field out there in terms of football, NFL, NBA, all this kind of stuff is you probably are a true fan of the sport and not understanding the business behind it. But hey, listen, Man United did this 10 years ago, right? When they were looking for investment for all of the money that they were spending, there were billions and billions in debt out there. The one thing that they had to stop doing was looking for investment in Europe and the UK. They had to spread their wings, and they ended up doing investment in the US, which brought them in billions. It's scaling. It's where these companies go. It's where it all end up going. It's looking at, yes, we might make £1 billion from UK rights and all this kind of stuff, but the way that, and this is one of the things that I really get disheartened about, and I see this through my youth coaching and stuff like that in football, is the amount of the younger generation, unless they are, I use the word forced lightly, into supporting a local team or a Premier League team, they just go where the media takes them. They go where the social media takes them in terms of supporting players nowadays. It's more about supporting players than it is about a club, unless you've got diehard parents and that say, no, you support Tottenham. The amount of kids that used to turn up with Messi tops, Ronaldo tops, Real Madrid, all this kind of stuff, compared to local supported teams is mind blowing.
Out of question though, Lee, with this whole thing, let's just say, for instance, it goes through, one way or another, there is going to be some type of super. Well, there already is, basically. That is why they changed the Champions League to what it is, so you see better games earlier on than later on, as such, wasn't it? That was why they did it, purely because the ESL scared them a bit. So they made it so you'd see PSG versus Juventus versus Liverpool all in the same group as such, to get it more on this side. Right, so if it goes through to that, then the smaller clubs as such, they will evaporate. There will be no League One, League Two, whatever else. The rest of the football market will totally collapse. Purely opinionated.
I don't think it will collapse, but you're right. It will have a massive effect, Dan. Absolute massive. Grassroots football will dry up.
Wouldn't it just become like the Premier League as we know it now, if we're going to use the UK as an example, would almost become what the
second-rate league
chip is. You know what I mean? It's almost like, right, what am I going to watch today? Well, I'm going to watch the European Super League and I'm going to watch Liverpool play PSG, whatever. Oh, there's no European Super League games on. Oh, all right, I'll go and watch Fulham versus
but it would
Forest,
But
isn't that where we're going with this?
What I mean would be collapse is the fact of, people just wouldn't be so interested in it as such. I mean, Lee made the perfect points. You've already got the people coming out with the Messi tops, Ronaldo tops, everything else and that. All the other clubs, their TV revenue would just crash and hit the floor like pretty much everyone else has in Europe. I mean, even Spain don't get it on the major channels anymore and that. And so all the other clubs would end up losing most of their TV revenue because some little old thing would come in and say, right, there you go, there's a pocket money deal and that's all you're going to get. And they'd have to take it. The next thing you know, they'd have to put their ticket prices right down. And then everything else would come down. And the club would literally collapse. Because what they've already got, they wouldn't have the money incoming to even run a stadium. Now, say someone like a smaller team like...
But Dan, we are seeing that already, mate. There is a slow decline in the lower leagues. There really is. And it's at the moment, it's going slow, and they're almost like they're just about... A lot of teams are surviving. Their only ambition is to try and get up the ladder as much as they can. But what we're seeing now, and this is the whole Ryan Reynolds debate, right? It's taking the likes of Hollywood and other people that have got money to inject money to push them up. It's not naturally progression. There's too many clubs to naturally progress or someone to stand out. It takes an injection of money from someone that's just got money to play with to actually get you there. And that's
No,
can I ask? I want to just look at a different angle, and again, this subject I find this fascinating because I'm not an expert with this. Spurs, expert,
it's something I follow, actually.
Just kidding. Right? What would this mean, guys? For I think it's interesting what Dan's talking about the revenue that would be coming into these teams. If there was a Super League, would there still be a Champions League that runs alongside that? So for the rest of the teams that are playing in this kind of watered down Premier League and the watered down Bundesliga and Serie A, would they still then have their own separate European competition? How much money would you get for that? Would it still then be a top four? That it would change the structure of everything, wouldn't it?
It would certainly have an impact on that, Savva, yeah. Because you've got the other thing you've got to take into consideration, and again, a lot of people don't think about this kind of thing, is if it say it was as people, just a caveat as well, I don't want an ESL. I don't want it. I think it makes too much division between countries and fans to be sustainable for the fans to be able to go to games all the time, right? Can you imagine an ESL where, Man City are paying half of their games across Europe? People just won't be able to afford it. You'll end up having stadiums either half empty or just full of non-fans, just neutrals, right? I don't necessarily want it. It's not on my agenda.
Which already happens at Spurs anyway.
Well, yeah, exactly. But the problem you're going to have with this, if you do, let's just say you have the ESL and that is segregated, and then you have let's call it the Premier League as it would be with B teams and other things. The thing you've got to think about, if we keep European competitions, are we then leaving English football in a state where we have teams that can afford to go to Europe, if people are not going to be watching these games and the attendance levels drops down and the money isn't there, the revenue isn't there for these kind of competitions, is it even sustainable for the likes of, we could be talking like the likes of a Fulham or Southampton or someone like that in these type of competitions every year? Can they sustain having to do all this travel, right? And especially if the revenues are dropping because everyone's watching the ESL, not watching these lower rate competitions, it's going to be an absolute nightmare.
You've basically just said, as I say, I ain't got the best way with words, but believe it or not, I do actually follow stuff like this and find it interesting. That's why I did actually like the guest you had on, Savva. And personally, I think, there'd be some couple of clubs better off. The rest of them, I think it would just fall to pieces, basically. You might still call it the English Premier League, but the amount of money in it might as well be League Two. Yeah. Because the whole thing would just crash. They wouldn't even have the money coming in, like clubs like, say, Fulham, Ipswich, Southampton, Leeds, for example, still big clubs or whatever. They wouldn't even be able to get the revenue in to bloody support their stadium, because everybody keeps telling me the biggest revenue in football in the Premier League is TV. So look what Spanish had to do with their TV. Look what Italian had to do with their TV. Look what all the others had to do, like with the channels that they went on, because people just really weren't so interested anymore.
Yeah, you're right, Dan.
Messi and Ronaldo left Spain, the Spanish league is meh. Who really watches it? It's not a big TV deal in England anymore. Same as the French, same as the Italian, everything. Whereas the English Premier League is a massive deal all over the world. The Spanish
Premier
League
is
isn't.
the Super League, isn't it, Dan? The Premier League is the Super League.
The Spanish League was only big for two reasons for a long time, and that was Messi and Ronaldo. Now Messi and Ronaldo have gone.
Sorry, I can't. Sorry.
Okay,
sorry.
I'll prove it. Savva, I'll
Sorry.
prove it.
Yeah.
I'll prove it. Then tell me what channel. Tell me what channel the Spanish league is on, and tell me the deal on it.
Yeah, but you can't attribute that to two footballers. This was happening when Messi and
It was
Ronaldo
one of
were
the main
there.
reasons.
Hang on, but when Messi and Ronaldo were there, it had started to come away from Sky Sport. But if you look at the last 5-6 years of La Liga, when Messi and Ronaldo were both still there for many years, it wasn't on Sky Sports anymore. That I think you're conflating two arguments. There's so many different streaming platforms now. When you look at Amazon Prime, Premier Sports, TNT, I think that's what separated La Liga from not being the main thing on Sky. Look how much Sky doesn't have now. Sky used to have the monopoly of football. Now I'm getting ready for watch-alongs, right? And I'm like, where? Huh?
It still has.
I don't think it does. It has.
Okay.
It's
got the English Premier League.
Hang on. It has the monopoly of Premier League, but even then, that's breaking away, right? That's breaking away.
Amazon
now.
jumping in.
Amazon are getting more and more and more
TNT.
Premier League games. Amazon are getting days where they're showing all 10 Premier League games. You can watch whatever game. So Sky don't have that monopoly anymore. You look at it. If I said to you now, La Liga, that's on this channel. Serie A, it's on this channel. France, La Liga, it's on this channel. There's more streaming platforms. Back then, it was purely Sky Sports.
No, I agree.
I don't think you can put it down to Messi and Ronaldo not being there.
No, it is a part of it. It is
But
a
then
part
that
of it.
defeats
They was a
the
massive.
whole point of the premise, doesn't it? Because
I'm not saying it's the sole reason, but them two were definitely a major attraction to the La Liga. If you look at the TV revenue of what they pay for Sky, for what they pay for the Premier League, and what Amazon pay to get the couple of Premier League games they do in a year, and TNT, they pay 10, 20 times more for the English league than they pay more for just for what they show for the Premier League than every other league put together, and then randomly times it by about 3. Because these leagues are so desperate for money that they'll take some crappy little deal off of Sky or TNT or Amazon quite happily. Whereas the Premier League can sit back and just go, we want more money, because the Premier League is that big. They have to pay that money for the Premier League. For the Italian league, they can give them a crappy little deal. Spain, there's only 2 real attractions out there, and that is Real Madrid and Barcelona. And yes, now that Messi and Ronaldo have gone, it's taken, let's say, 10% away off the attraction of it. Not for players, obviously.
I think
for people watching.
I think
I'm not saying the whole thing. I'm not saying the whole thing, but it is part of it.
But you know my feeling when English fans talk about European football, I'm always very wary because I can tell who watches it and who doesn't. When they say things like there's no attractions there, that Messi and Ronaldo aren't there. The best players in the world play in La Liga. The best players in the world.
I didn't say there's no attraction.
No, I know.
There were 2 main attractions. Why people specifically watched it.
But that would have been if they had played in England, if they had played in France, if they had played in Scotland. That's Messi and Ronaldo. They're just a different level of footballer. Now there aren't those attractions. Look at the Premier. As I said, look at the Premier League. Ben, I know you need to jump, don't you, mate?
Yeah.
I know you need to jump.
Yeah, I need to jump.
I'll see you tonight.
See you tonight, Savva. Give me a
Savva,
shout.
Savva, is this a little bit less loud?
Yeah, that's much better, mate. Yeah, you
Okay.
were a little bit loud. I like
Yeah.
it. Turn me on.
I haven't even set my new mic up yet. But anyway, can I? I've got to jump onto a conference call in like 2 minutes. Can I just answer one thing to Matt? Because Matt in the comments just was saying there's no way that the fans will allow this to happen. Matt, just as an FYI, as a business, if 18% of my revenue is coming from the fans, and yet I'm given an opportunity to, increase my revenue by another 32% and replace that 18% that I was getting from the fans, the business isn't going to care, mate. That's what the point we're getting at. We're customers now. We're not fans. If a business can replace 18% with 32%, it's exactly what they're going to do. And if an ESL provides that to them through a Netflix-style TV revenue or winnings from the league or something of that nature or a worldwide audience, unfortunately, that's what they're going to do. It's about business nowadays, not about fans. And that's what makes me sad about this whole situation, which is terrible.
You're right there.
But anyway, Savva, sorry, I've got to jump. I've got to go and do some work, apparently.
Take care, mate. I appreciate that, Lee.
No worries. Cheers for letting me on.
Big up, Lee. Big up. I mean, I'm not going to go through it. I do need to wrap up in a few minutes. I've got a lot to do today, actually. But yeah, look, I just think it's a really interesting conversation, Dan, because
it is. I agree.
None of us can be proven. This isn't like football results. None of us can be proven right or wrong. We don't know what's going to happen. It's certainly going to be interesting. I just feel that whilst there's so many powerful people with the vast amounts of money they've got, there's always going to be someone who wakes up and goes, I've got a plan. Now, whether they can put that plan into action or not is very different.
It's a different story. Yeah.
If I wake up this morning, right? If I'm a billionaire, Dan, I can wake up and go, Dan, I've got a plan. 9 times out of 10, you're going to go, I'm in because I've got £1 billion. Because I've got the money behind it, you can make most things happen. What that looks like is going to be really, really interesting. But I do wish football was what it was 15, 20 years ago. I do wish it was the innocence.
What you have basically said there is everything I've always said to you, and is that money talks. And when you put enough of it down, everything has a price, one way or another. Nearly everything has a price. And it's
We've all seen Fatal Attraction.
Exactly. Some of us have even lived it. But with that, it's the problem. Is the main point I'm getting at is the fact that the rest of football needs the English Premier League. The English Premier League doesn't need the rest of football. Because, like I said, all the TV revenue, all the money is over here. Bar one club in Germany, bar one club in, bar 2 clubs in Spain, bar 1 club in France. Apart from that, there is absolute the Serie A is literally bankrupt. The teams over there are broke. The only reason Inter didn't go into severe trouble is because their owners sold them off last season or season before. And they're about the only team out there with a little bit of pocket money, basically. Even Juventus haven't got the money to spend. Not like they did. And their league is in that much trouble that they have to accept some poor little TNT deal that takes them up. Same as the Spanish league. Like I said, with Ronaldo and Messi out of it now, that's taken, let's say, random 5% off the interest of it, of people wanting to watch it for Real Madrid and that. Obviously, loads of people still want to watch it because it is the Spanish league. They might prefer Real Madrid, whatever. But Ronaldo and Messi were 2 major things out there.
Of course.
I mean, Madrid themselves, the reason they're supported so hard by the actual country, the government, is because if it wasn't for Madrid and it wasn't for Ironapa, not Ironapa, what's the other one? What's the other place you go? Not Ironapa, Ibiza. Yeah, if it wasn't for Ibiza and Madrid, Spain would be Spain. There'd hardly be a Spain because there'd be no income in it. Those are the 2 main income in the actual Spanish country, which brings money to it. There's so many ways that the money works. But my whole point is, without the English Premier League and the government getting their bit of it and everything else, there'd just be no point of it going ahead. And the billionaires over here are not going to be forced to do it in any means or manner. If it gets done anyway, it's going to get done by the way that the English want it done, basically. Our government, our leagues, our owners of the clubs, whatever else. This is why the rest of the world is so desperate for this ESL, not the English Premier League. Because literally every other league out there, they don't even have the income of what our 15th place team does. We don't need them. They need us.
Well, look, it's certainly going to be very interesting. We'll see. Look, this is something that's going to rumble on for years. I think, as I said, all the while there's rich people. Listen, thanks for everyone in the chat. I think we had some really good conversations today. I think it is sad that football has gone so much towards money. It is sad that the fan now, we are the little person. It used to all be about us. It used to all be about football fans. Now it's all about this, no matter where you are. Listen, big up to Ayuso's coming at the last minute of a 96th minute stoppage time winner. Said the way footy is played these days is killing it. Look, I think that the worrying thing for me, a user, is the more the money that's come in, I think the quality of football is less. And I think that's the worrying thing for me. With all the technology, all the diets, all the training, all the facilities, you would think we'd have better footballers now than we used to have, and we just don't. But big up to you, a user. I really appreciate that. Thanks for everyone in the chat. Really, really appreciate everybody. Guys, girls, please get over to Hotspur Hood and support Danny. I've only had one subscriber this morning. You tight gits. Much love. Take care. And as always, come on, you Spurs.